that do affect the insurance industry and the future of it. So why are we seeing more innovation and I think a lot more talk and discussion about innovation in the insurance industry now? I think there's a few reasons that that are sort of helping that spur that discussion to be had. One, obviously lower interest rates, and insurers are looking for more efficiencies. If you think about commercial P&C, for example, being in a very soft market, and where can technology help drive some of those efficiencies? I think there's an argument to be made that certain insurance products, like individual life insurance, for example, haven't evolved with maybe some of the demographic or psychographic preferences of today's generation, let alone tomorrow's and what we'll see there. I think there still are a set of emerging risks that are set to grow rapidly. If you think about cyber risk, for example, we were seeing, for example, the CEO of Lloyd's of London recently mentioned that they're seeing a huge, uptake in cyber insurance and sort of, putting resources towards that and in anticipation of demand rising even more this year. I think there haven't been a lot of big sort of exit opportunities for venture investors in the insurance sector to date, but that's changing. I mean, I think at the end of last year, SquareTrade was acquired by Allstate for over $1 billion. But obviously, it's a long game. I think a lot of if you think about SquareTrade, for example, that it's a company that was started in 1999, pivoted to warranty in 2006, and then was just acquired last year. So that's from 16 years from founding to that acquisition. So certainly now a little bit more focus on this industry with that outcome. There is obviously a lot of talk and discussion about new data, and sort of the new data that can affect underwriting, targeting, pricing. One company, for example, is Cape Analytics, which is using machine learning on geospatial imagery to help automate some of the property underwriting, which we'll talk a little bit about on the panel. So how can we make use of new data sets and applying sort of the new ways to analyze that data in ways to make the insurance process easier. So with that, we've seen a lot of startups in this space, and I think 2016 was definitely a high watermark for that activity. I think there's a lot of startups that are in the space. I mean, yesterday in Vingette we looked at a little bit of a map, but there's some areas that we'll talk about today. I mean, I think a lot of startups we're seeing are going after digital distribution, in a variety of ways, whether they're functioning as a broker or even a carrier in some cases. There are startups that are now going after more complex lines of insurance, like life insurance we mentioned, and commercial insurance. And there's also the startups who are helping now, shape what insurance will look like using sort of AI and machine learning technology that we'll talk on the panel about. When we look at just the investment numbers, from CB Insights. The deal activity has certainly, I think that's the bigger trend to pay attention to, is just the number of investments in this area has grown immensely. Funding can be driven by a few big deals, which it was in 2015. But just that level of activity from 28 deals to over 170 in 2016 is certainly remarkable. And most of those deals, as we mentioned yesterday, are very early stage companies who are just getting a product underway, out the door, or even just investing in just a team. So there's a lot of early stage activity in insurance. 2016 was definitely the sort of the spike of that. I think when we think about some of the areas that are interesting, when we talk about distribution, will you be buying your next, or will maybe the next generation be buying their insurance policies through some of these new interfaces that we talked about yesterday? Lemonade, for example, built allowing you to buy homeowners and renters insurance in New York through a chatbot interface, and building these new ways to interact with consumers in a way that really resonates with them. As we mentioned, there's a lot of startup activity in some of these more complex areas that are harder for startups to necessarily are more entrenched and have sort of the complexities that are that may not have attracted startups to go after previously. Thinking about commercial insurance, for example, is actually one of the most active areas for startup formation and investment in 2016, especially in the small business segment. And then we're seeing some startups who are bringing more machine learning capabilities to insurance in different ways, whether it's by helping sort of detect patterns in fraud, insurance fraud claims, whether that's helping to help predict cyber risk incidents, or even turning handwritten forms into digital data, which Captricity is working on. And what will be sort of the ultimate impact of AI in the insurance industry. This was a headline from last week where Fukoku Mutual in Japan replaced 34 workers after sort of installing an IBM Watson-based system. What will we ultimately see out of sort of the use of the new technologies in the insurance industry? So certainly, I think what we'll be talking about on the panel. So with that, I'm going to have Cameron jump right in, and then we'll get started.